Sounds a bit dull, doesn't it? God save the Queen. Have you ever wanted to be sophisticated, to be a bit more international? A bit more, you know, have a bit more je ne sais quoi? Well, I certainly did in 1975. I needed a lot of je ne sais quoi because I was driving around, as you remember, in this Austin Maxi, which I was about to get rid of. And there she is, Ship Brown. God save the Queen. That tune went perfectly, the dullness of it. There we go. And what I went out to buy instead was this, a Renault 16. Now, a Renault 16 had been designed back in 1965, and it was the target market for, believe it or not, the Austin Maxi, which was designed in 1969. And the Austin Maxi tried to get some sales out of the Renault 16 drivers. Did it manage it? Not really. And it also tried the same with the Cortina drivers and get some mileage out of them. Not really. And the reason was that one of those three cars, the Cortina and the Renault 16 and the Austin Maxi, wasn't sexy. And one of them had the je ne sais quoi. And if you want to think of the God Save the Queen as this sort of ship brown car, think of this one, Renault 16. It had a sort of like a class to it because although it had been designed in 65, by 1975 when I saw it, and I thought I'd never buy a French car, I thought they're terribly soft and things like that. But then I had a test drive in a Renault 16, and God, I was amazed. It had a sort of steering wheel which was, you sat up and you know you could see clearly the road, and had big sort of spongy seats. The ride was magnificent, and it had a sort of like you changed gear on the column. I didn't like that very much, but in fact it gave tons of room in the car, and it would drive along all day quietly at 90 miles an hour. It was absolutely amazing car, and it's one of the few cars that I actually felt, you know, when I got out of it, I thought, I look forward to driving this again. I never thought I'd say that about a French car, you know, a French car. We joined the common market, as it was called, the EEC, now the European Union, now we've left. And it was all part of the je ne sais quoi, I guess, to have a car like that, because it epitomised the success of the common market and the desperation that we had in trying to join it after de Gaulle had left the stage and stopped saying no. So we joined the common market, but we also did other things. We joined the European setup of the continent, sur le continent, in other ways as well. For example, there were lots of cookery books came out around then in the 70s, and for the first time, large numbers. And of course there were TV shows on recipes and cooking and all these sorts of things. And so cooking and food became sexy for the first time. And you know, instead of fish and chips and things like that, people were going to do some sophisticated things. I went to Paris in one of these, and I did order I thought I was going to be very sophisticated. I ordered something, and a bloody great pig's trotter arrived on the table. Literally a case of putting your foot in your mouth. But it was really a good car, this was, and I used it to drive up and down to Nottingham because I got it on the company instead of this bloody thing. And but in those days, driving up and down was a grim experience because you had something called a hard shoulder. It wasn't a hard at all, it was soft sand with big puddles in it, and you saw all the British cars that broken down. Well, I can tell you, this Renault 16 didn't break down at all. It just wafted up there, and you could even go into the Watford Gap, which was a grim place, and you know, you'd exit it with, even though you drank appalling coffee, with some elan, because you were getting into a, you know, a Renault 16, and you were driving off and so, you know, oh, nerd. Don't care. And off you went in it, you see. was all a bit like a TV film at the time, a TV play called Abigail's Party, which took the piss out of people like, well, the lower middle class, which I suppose I belong to, for their attempted at sophistication in cooking sophisticated food and drinking sophisticated wines, even at Irondell. And the Renault 16 was expected to be stood outside all this, and you had a sort of like a feeling of, I don't know, elan and also sophistication, that you were ahead of the game and you were looking to the future. You weren't just sort of thinking, you know, God save the Queen in an Austin maxi. But the thing about it was that the British cars, I mean, Alex Issigonis, who designed the maxi after designing, you know, the Mini and before that the Morris Minor, I mean, they designed some pretty sophisticated things, but as I said before, in the previous little thing I did, it was all very well designing hydroelastic suspension and engines that went sideways to save space and that sort of thing, transverse engines they call them, and all these sorts of things. But if the cars were poorly put together, they were by a pissed off workforce for British Leyland, it was no good at all, and they were just being shot out of the market by Fords, who were funded from America and developed straightforward cars which are sexy, and of course the French, who sold even sexier cars and were, you know, for people like me who were more sophisticated. Well, what was the good thing about, apart from the drive quality and everything about the Renault 16, what did it do? What was the inventive about it? Well, actually, it invented the modern car, the car we see today, more than any other. And that's because the designer of it one day was looking at cars down there, and he thought, that car over there, you either seem to have a boot or a trunk in it where you're stuck on the back, so the car goes like that at the back, or you had to have like a station wagon, you know, a state car where it just goes like that. And he thought, it doesn't look very sexy, that does it? That's designed like that, or like that. And he looked at it and he thought, instead of going there to there like that or like that, why don't you just go like that? And he invented something called the hatchback. And the French called it the voiture à aeon. But it wasn't long before everybody in the world jumped on the bandwagon, including Volkswagen, who dumped the Beetle and came up with the car that became synonymous with their name, which was the Golf, the hatchback. But the people who got there first, well before the others in 1965, were Renault, with the Renault 16, the hatchback. And in fact, nobody called it the voiture à aeon. Even the French called it le hatchback. Now I must get that glass of Irondell down me.